Calling All Stations, the Transport Podcast. I'm Christian Walmer, an author and journalist who has covered transport for the past 30 years. In every episode, we try to keep you up to date with the most engaging news stories, policy developments, and interviews in the transport world. And with me is my regular co-presenter, Mark Walker, who has spent decades looking at transport policies and legislation. So, Mark, what's on our agenda today?
Hello, Christian, and hello to our listeners. And as is only right for a show about transport, you've been on your travels again. So we have a report from the Great Central Railway on their reunification scheme to bring two pieces of historic railway back together as part of a single heritage line. We also have an interview with Caroline Seton, who is one of the co-founders of the Forest e-bikes company. And then finally, we will be hearing from you in a thought from the departure lounge from Stuttgart Station on the lessons to be learned from their major infrastructure troubles.
Yes, and some lessons not to be learned. That is quite an extraordinary place, and I was amazed that there could be somewhere that was more of a mess than Euston, and longer, because it's actually been a mess for a good 10 years, and there's little sign that it's sorted out. So I hope our listeners enjoy my report from the field there.
But first of all, we're off to Loughborough in Leicestershire, where you met Tom Ingall at the Great Central Railway.
I'm at Loughborough Central Station, which is the headquarters of the Great Central Railway, where they've got a very exciting project in hand to reunify two sections of line which will give them an 18-mile railway across the East Midlands. But more than that, they are a very lively preservation railway, which really points the way forward to the future of these many preserved railways across the country. And I'm with Tom Ingall, a lifelong volunteer with the Great Central Railway, who's going to tell me a bit about the railway itself and then about how this reunification will be so important for its future. So, Tom, welcome to the Calling All Stations podcast.
Thank you very much, and welcome to the Great Central Railway. I'm delighted you're here, visiting us for the first time.
Yes, indeed. I've been to many preserved railways, and filmed in many of them, in fact, but not in this one. But anyway, so tell me a bit, first of all, about, this is the Great Central Railway, which, of course, was the last mainline railway built in Britain, but you've kind of captured the name. So what exactly are you?
So we are a heritage railway, and as you say, when we were set up back in 1969, as the Great Central was in its final days, it was all about preserving as much of a main line as could possibly be saved. Now, railway preservation was still very much in its infancy then. You'd got some narrow gauge railways, you'd got organisations like the Severn Valley which were getting on their feet. This was different. This was not going to save a branch line, it was going to save as much of a main line as possible. And essentially, in the very early days, they managed to get hold of a station. Now, over the next 20 years, they rebuilt to Quorn Woodhouse, the first station south, then Rothley, crossing the beautiful Swithlin Reservoir on the way, and then in the early 1990s, we extended to a station called Leicester North, on the site of the old Belgrave and Birstall station. In the south, that's given us a running distance of about 8 miles. And again, through incredibly hard fundraising work and the generosity of a sponsor called the David Clark, we were able to relay double track. At Swithland, halfway along the line, there's even a 4-track section. It's fully signalled. You really should come to one of our gala events where you get steam, diesel, freight, passenger, even postal trains.
I'm sure some of our listeners will come, and I will at some point. But so this was all done with volunteers?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, really.
There is a core of paid staff, like most heritage railways, but most of the work has been done by volunteers, and most of the fundraising has been people dipping their hands in pockets.
Okay, so and then there's another section of line as well, which at the moment is separate, which runs up to Nottingham.
That's right. So north of Loughborough, there's immediately north of Loughborough Central Station, there's about 500 metres of track missing. And then frustratingly close by, so close that locomotives can exchange whistles with each other, is another 9 miles of track.
They can chat each other up but not meet.
Absolutely, yes. It's the railway Tinder. We're forever swiping left with our smoke. I think that we might have stretched that analogy as far as can possibly go. That section of line, that 9 miles towards Nottingham, was originally retained by BR for 2 industrial customers. Those industrial customers were so important, BR even built a brand new spur line from the Midland to connect to the northern section of the Great Central, which they needed for now. And then, of course, within 10 years, both of those industrial customers had disappeared, leaving 9 miles of empty track, disappearing into the wilderness, which was eventually saved by preservationists. So now you have this situation where there are 2 heritage lines facing each other pretty much end on, with that missing 500 metres.
But they're run by different.
They are, but very closely aligned. So there's cross-population between the boards, there's joint events already. So there's one coming up to celebrate Railway 200 where we'll have trains on both sections and a vintage heritage bus rail replacement service between the two. So we're good at recreating all aspects of the railway story.
I like that. Just before we get into the detail of the reunification, what are the sort of events you have here?
So on the Great Central in the south, which is a much more mature railway without any disrespect to our northern brethren. So we have usual steam galas, diesel galas, we run dining trains, driver loco services, charter work, testing work, training work. So it's a very busy railway 365 days a year. The northern section also does galas, it does shorter passenger rides for usually family focused. There's a very good popular Christmas event, and again their fair share of testing and training. So for example, last year there was a company came in looking to train operatives on a tamper, and they tamped our entire 9 mile northern main line as a training exercise.
For our non-rail listeners,
levelling the track, making sure there's ballast in the right place, making sure the ride is as smooth as glass.
Right.
And our main line in the north is now absolutely beautiful,
right,
because of that work. And so there's a quid pro quo. The northern section much more able to offer fantastic unlimited training access.
Okay, so there's a problem in the middle.
Yes.
Right.
500 metres of track was taken away by British Rail because they were looking to build a new spur line between the northern section of the GCR and the Midland Main Line to give them access to those 2 industrial customers. Right. So they demolished an embankment, they took away some bridges, they moved a whole load of muck, built this new spur line. They moved an embankment. And it sounds daft, and I kid you not, they literally loaded it up, dug it up, put it into the back of bigger than transits, drove it north along the old formation that they hadn't demolished yet, over the bridge, which apparently had corrugated sheets of iron strapped to the side to stop stuff falling on peaks and Mark 1s on the Midland Main Line, and dumped it on the other side to build this new curved chord line. So that means the northern section has the connection to the Midland Main Line today, but it left us with a hole in the middle.
Right.
Putting that hole back is very complicated. They couldn't have picked a more complicated 500 metres. If it was just plain line, we'd have done it years ago. So immediately north of Loughborough Central, and we'll go and take a walk in a minute, a walk in the wilderness, we can cross over the the Grand Union Canal on a canal bridge, which we've refurbished. Then we need to build a short section of embankment, then a big concrete viaduct to climb up over a road called Railway Terrace. Now again, Tempus Fugit, Railway Terrace was once just a tiny farmer's track. Now it's the road to Chalmers Refuse Tip, so it's home to bin lorries every day. Right. We've got to go high enough over the bin lorries, then we cross the Midland Main Line, and we've already built that bridge across the Midland Main Line. So people always thought that was the bit of the job that would floor us.
I remember this was a few years ago.
It was, so 2017. Yes. So that bit is in place, just like the canal bridge. Sorry, a Class 37 has just started up. Things like that happen.
Right.
And then we reconnect to the north by crossing a new road bridge over the A60 road.
So let's resume, Tom, now that the diesel train has gone.
I told you we were busy.
Absolutely. So we were talking about reunification.
And the challenges.
Yes.
So, as I say, a very complicated 500 metres of track.
And you're going to build it, some of it on stilts, I saw.
Yes,
rather
absolutely.
Like the Chinese high-speed rail I've just been to see. Yes.
So we have built 3 parts of this job now, which represents an investment of around £5 million by the
Wow.
time you've paid for all those bits
Wow.
and done all the project management like planning. There's some work on the Transport Works Act audit, etc., etc. So there's all that kind of
You have
stuff
to get
going on in the
an
background.
act.
Yes, yeah.
And you've just had planning permission.
But everything else after those 3 bits required planning consent.
Right.
So the main structure you were talking about, the one on stilts, the bridge over railway terrace, a couple of other bits and pieces, that in itself has been a low 6-figure expenditure on planning consent alone, which is no small beer for a volunteer organisation.
Right.
And likewise, getting that 11-month process through, so it's taken 11 months from application to receiving consent, which was just a couple of weeks ago, which we're fantastically grateful for, and we know it's a big thing we're asking of the town and of the people who interface with us, so it's really important everyone's had their say. No objections, away we go. We're not quite ready to stick a shovel in the ground yet because we need to do some more ground investigation work, particularly on the section you were talking about on stilts. We need to know exactly where the rock is, where the foundations will need to go, how deep the piles will need to go, and that in turn will lead to a final price and a delivery schedule.
Right.
The majority of the funding for this project has come from donors like you, donors like me, who want to see it happen, saying, I'll sign up for £10 a month, £20 a month. And that support is coming from all around the world.
Right.
Currently in the bank, we've got £2.5 million. Again, not small beer, but not enough to build the rest of it. So my job at the railway is to help spread the word, talk to stakeholders, talk to railway enthusiasts, talk to politicians and say, look, this project is happening. It's
So
being
most
driven.
of it's come from crowdfunding.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yes, essentially a traditional version of crowdfunding.
Right.
And we're building as we can afford. Now, if you were the Euro Millions winner tonight, Mr. Woolmar, and you say, okay, here's the blank cheque, Mr. Ingall, I don't know exactly what the final price is yet, but he's going to be probably in the low tens of millions, looking at what we have to
The
do.
low tens of millions.
Yes. So actually because I was listening to your podcast last night, your HS2 episode, and you were saying HS2 are on a budget of 20 million a day, or it breaks down.
That's right.
So not even for around about half of what HS2 is costing a day, we can do the job here. And you build 500 metres, get 18 miles of living railway history for free.
Sorry, so let me get that right. So you're saying it's about 10 million or something?
No, it's probably a bit more than that.
A bit more than
a bit more than that, but we don't have
not
a final
20 million,
I don't have a final price yet because we still got to work for those ground investigations.
Right.
And there are always
That's a lot of money.
it is for a heritage organisation, but look how far we've come, which is to raise a lot of money, and we have a lot of money banked as well because people want to see this happen.
Right.
I think there is a real social value to it. I think there is a real local economic benefit to it. Probably a national economic benefit to it.
But
You're
let me
talking
just
tourist
challenge
attraction.
you here.
Yeah, please
Just
do.
I mean, say, you've got a 9-mile railway,
We have.
another 9-mile railway.
What's
so
the
what?
point?
Yes, what's
Okay.
the point? 18 miles. Do people want to chug along for 18 miles?
I do think the world of heritage railways is changing. It is no longer enough to shove a paper cardboard ticket at someone through a small window and expect them to amuse themselves for 5 hours. So at the GCR, since the new incoming General Manager, Malcolm Holmes, formerly of West Midlands Railway, and since the pandemic, we have refocused our visitor offer, which is to say, we're going to guide you round here. We're going to show you and tell you the stories of the railway in a way that you cannot experience.
So it's more of a show than just a travel
Absolutely.
experience.
Come at this time. We'll put you on a train here. You can see what the seats were like. You can hear what the sounds were like. Oh, look, there's a freight wagon. What was that about? This is what a country station was look like. This was why it was built here.
Right.
Now, why don't you go and look over there? We're fixing some wagons. Or visit the engine shed. See the engineering work that's going on. It's that sharing of skills. So that's the visitor experience. But also this railway relies on a commercial income stream. Dining tickets, driver train, testing, training work that we do with train operating companies already. And if we've got a longer railway with different circumstances, conditions, we can do more of that. This project is about putting together two railways to be more than the sum of their parts, if you see what I mean.
Okay.
And frankly, and I will always admit to this, deep down inside there is the sheer bloody mindedness of it as well.
There's the train spotter bit.
Absolutely, yes, and I'm not ashamed of that. It's been a great hobby to have all my life. It's time to make train spotting cool again.
Right.
But in the meantime, the two railways are providing economic benefit. They're providing social benefit. Heritage railways bring people together of all ages who might otherwise be at home, who might otherwise interact with each
employment.
other. Absolutely. We've got full-time jobs as well as volunteers. And the volunteers often learn skills here that they then go on and take into jobs in the National Railway Network. Everyone is a winner.
For the train spotters amongst my listeners, what engines and stuff have you got here?
So right now we're looking at our diesel fleet. I can see a 47 from here. I can see a Deltic from here. I can see a Peak, a 50. The National Railway Museum's 37, and that's just where the siding disappears around the corner. In a short while, we can head down to our loco shed, where you will see there's a standard 5 down there. There's a couple of standard 2s, BR standard 2s. There's Salamiel is down there, a National Collection locomotive. There's a couple of black 5s in the shed, all at various stages of either running or restoring.
You might explain what those.
Oh, sorry. I thought you said this was the train spotters. I just assumed we'd all got the heavy.
Also for other people.
Isn't that the full metal anorak you're wearing there, Christian? So. British Railways, in the dying days of steam, they were formed in 1948, and they could and probably maybe should have sensibly gone all-out dieselisation first of all.
I have written about this. Yes.
Instead, well, there, get the book plug in. Instead, they built a last hurrah of around 1,000 steam locomotives, the standard classes. Standard 2s were quite small things that might operate pick-up goods. Standard 5s, stopping passenger trains. Then you went up to the standard 7s, which was the Britannia class, really elegant express locos. We've got Oliver Cromwell, one of the 2 survivors here. And then the standard 9s, the 9Fs, which were fantastic for freights. And in the last days of the Great Central, the 9Fs were synonymous with this route. They would haul great big heavy laden coal trains from the coalfields of the north down to the south, and they would do it in a very fast time.
Evening Star was a 9F.
That's right, yes. Right. Never worked here, but classes of 9Fs certainly worked here on the line. Okay. And we have got older locomotives
and now you've got these diesels as well.
Yes, indeed, because it's a broad church.
Right, and people like...
it's the show. Right. Even, I think, the modern audience, you can say to them, that diesel locomotive is now 60 years. Look at the design of it. Look at the shape of it. Right. Look at how that has influenced where we are today as a railway. And also, if you're standing at Quorn Station, for example, at a gala, and there are trains coming past every 10 minutes while you're sipping a cup of tea in a wartime refreshment room, what's not to like? The show is incredible.
So, Tom, we're in the shed, kind of where they're repairing various locomotives and carriages. So what have we got here?
Well, in front of us we've got a tremendous variety of motive power. So we've got a diesel multiple unit over here, the forerunner of today's modern trains that you'll have travelled up here from London St Pancras to see us on today. That's being repainted. Next to that we have the chassis of the Great Central Railway's 04 loco. There are only 2 surviving Great Central Railway locos. One is Butler Henderson Express Passenger, and this one is an 04, which is a freight loco. Might not sound very glamorous, but absolutely ideal. Built in 1912.
In bits, though.
It is in bits, yes.
So
there you can see it's got 8 large driving wheels and a pony wheel at the front there.
Right.
And then you've got the chassis up in the air on the jacks.
Yeah.
They're to be shortly reunited. The big missing hole is the boiler. The boiler needs extensive work yet. This loco has run in preservation, but one of the big challenges for preservation is every 10 years you have to take a loco to pieces and work on it. And as always with heritage things, when you start taking them to pieces, the more expensive they get. People say, what is the economics of working a steam loco? And the answer is you put the £5 straight in the firebox and you never see them again.
Yes, right.
Beyond that, Class 33 being repainted into a lovely blue livery. I think that will look fantastic.
That's a diesel.
That's a diesel, and then there are some more steam locomotives all the way down the back of the shed. We can get about 9 locos in here. It's an old World War II hangar, believe it or not, which was life expired when it came to us in the early 70s, and the building has been thoroughly refurbished, but is pretty much on its last 5 years.
And how many volunteers do you get who are prepared to do this sort of work?
Across the whole railway, on the south there's about 600, on the north there's about 200, and they all do different things. Some get involved in engineering, some get involved in driving, operational tasks, signalling, restoration. It's about getting together with a gang of mates and hanging out, and that's the social value of heritage railways.
Right. And one question I should have asked you earlier, which when will the reunification happen?
It depends on the funding now. Now we have the planning consent. We are masters of our own destiny. It comes down to how we get the money together. Does that have to continue to be essentially crowdfunding? Will we be able to get grants? Will we be able to find a Euro Millions winner? So all of those avenues are up for exploration.
So
if you wrote me the blank
yes.
check now, 3 years.
Right. Okay.
I suspect it's going to be longer and cost more, because we will eventually have to crowdfund our way through it.
Right.
But hope springs eternal.
Okay. So just as a last thing, how can our listeners help you?
Okay, I'm going to give you two. Thank you for the plug opportunity. I'm going to give you two really important addresses. First of all, our YouTube site, GCR Official. That's all one word, GCR Official. There you will get access to the Reunification project, latest news from the railway, so you can see all of the bits and pieces we've been discussing, the progress we're making. If you'd like to think about supporting the Reunification project, and again, strength in numbers, if everyone listening to the podcast today went, do you know what, I like what he was talking about, I'll give him a couple of quid. gcr.co.uk/unify. That's the railway's website. /unify takes you to the reunification part.
Okay, enough plug, Gov.
Thank you
very much. That was a wonderful intro and a great
a pleasure to meet
introduction into the GCR. So thank you very much, Tom. Shared e-bikes have become quite a big thing in London and some other places around the country. So I thought it would be a good idea to catch up with the co-founder of one of the new e-bike companies, Caroline Seton, who's founded Human Forest, whose bikes are scattered around London. And I'm very interested to hear about the fact you've set up relatively recently, and how's it going?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. It's a pleasure to be here to talk about dockless bike hire. We have been having a tremendous time in London, helping to transform the way that people get around the city. And even though I think you've mentioned that we might be new, we've actually been around 4 years, but it's relatively new industry.
Well, that's quite new in the scheme of things. London buses have been around for 100 years, so you know.
I was just about to say that. I said in the context of transport, we have been around for haven't been around for quite as long, but we have completely, what we believe is really supported in the transformation of London to get people moving on their bikes. And that's such a great thing, not just for the sustainability agenda, but also the active travel, everything, all the benefits that we get from being active, for being outside. And also, I think as you touched on when we were just speaking before this podcast, it's also often the quickest way to get around. So from a productivity point of view as well, bike share is often the best way to get around.
Okay, yes. I've just come from Stansted Airport, and I did use an e-bike to do the last bit because I was running late. But before we get on to the idea of you expanding the market, just tell us a bit about Human Forest and the name and the fact you give 10 minutes free, I think is the kind of one of your selling points.
So we're in 14 London boroughs, and we've patched together over that 4-year period a contiguous service area, which means that we can do trips across London. And we are used mainly by commuters. 70% of our journeys are commuters. We've got 1 million users in London, and we're doing over 1.5 million trips a month. So we've really become like fundamental.
1.5 million trips a month. That's impressive.
Yeah, we've become fundamental to the way that people move around London. But you're right about the 10 minutes free, and we were the first people in the industry to integrate ads into our app. And in return for the ads that you see through the app, you get that 10 minutes free. And that's been a bit of a revelation for people because, one, it's sort of broken down the barrier to take up, see the bike, but have that 10 minutes free, allows you to give something a try. And that was what we saw as one of our really unique selling points by being really affordable, because actually getting around London, if you're not using the tube, can be quite expensive if you're going to take an Uber or you're in a rush. And so that 10 minutes free, really breaking down the barriers and allowing people to try it for the first time and then change their habits.
So just tell me about Human Forest, though. You're a new company, so 4 years old, but you created this to operate in London, or you created it to
we're just in London. We are focused on London. We're a London business founded by Londoners for London. Absolutely. Right. London focused, yeah.
And what, how did you get funding, and how did it start up?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the company was founded by there's four of us on the founding team. So Augustin Gilastasi and Ignacio Gutierrez, who are ex-Cabify. You might know Cabify. It was Spain's first unicorn,
Right.
and it's a ride-hailing app. And they also had a micromobility business as part of Cabify. So they have all the mobility experience. They were there for 12 years. And then myself, I am from a legal financial communications and policy background. So I work with all the licensing, the legal work, comms and sustainability. And then we also have our marketing powerhouse, which is the idea behind the brand and the 10 minutes free. And his name's Michael Stewart. So there's the four of us that have worked together to bring this dream to a reality.
Right. Okay. And so your aim was really saying you wanted to expand sustainable transport in London. I mean, there's a political aim as well as a finance. Obviously, you're a commercial company, but you also there's a kind of political or wider social aim.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, we're a B Corp. We're one of the only mobility companies to be a B Corp, and so that's
Explain
that.
what. Sorry, explain what
So
that
a
is.
B Corp is all around corporate social responsibility, and that people, planet, and profit are all considered in the same line. So what that really means in practice is, our employees. A lot of our employees have shares in the company. Our all our sustainability is top notch. So we're zero emission operation, and we charge all the bikes with certified renewable energy, and then it's all around also development of the employees as well. So and your work in the community. So B Corp is really about thinking about not just about profit and the financial aims of the shareholders, but also the role of the company as a good corporate citizen within society.
Okay, now I mean, there is a big beast in this business as well as yourselves. There's Lime, presumably is a bigger has more, well, certainly seems to be more than you. Are you expecting other people to come into the market as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when we first launched, there was Lime and there were two other operators. Those operators left the market, and we had a number of years when it was just us and Lime, so the two of us. And just very recently, we're seeing a third operator re-enter the market. So I think London is a very competitive, attractive market for a lot of players. So I think we are going to see a lot more appetite from European and actually North American operators wanting to establish a presence here in London.
Now, do you have arrangements with the boroughs, or do you just kind of roll up and start leaving your bikes around?
No, absolutely not the latter. We have got it's a combination of memorandum of understanding or contracts with individual boroughs, and that comes with its challenges because there's no standardized approach to parking, which is the main thing that we really worry about with these agreements. So some boroughs, for example, operate a more free-floating model. Some boroughs operate a hybrid parking model, and then others just a compulsory mandatory parking model. And so as an operator and also as a user, there's quite a few complexities with that arrangement. But TfL is doing a really good job in trying to create sort of a London-wide, a pan-London framework, which will look a little bit similar to what the scooter regulation involves, and that's where they get all the boroughs to come together with a pan London agreement, and we'll tender for that, and that will mean that it's a standardized approach across London, and there's a bit of more uniformity, which sort of takes away some of the frictions moving between boroughs.
Yeah, well, I was also going to say there's some of the friction. There have been issues about bikes being left in people's way, and there's some kind of hostility about that. How are you dealing with that?
Yeah, that's something we take really seriously. It's a problem for non-users and users, and all, because the public realm was obviously, particularly in central London, in hot demand, and a lot of competing uses of the footway. So we invest in technology to really ensure that people need to park their bikes in designated bays. And we also invest in on-the-ground teams. We call them forest guardians, and they will proactively be there at the busiest bays, or what we know are the busiest bays, to retrieve bikes from people and line them up nicely. We also have to do some rebalancing, so we use electric vans to come to those hotspots, take bikes away, and then we're also running, a sort of 3-strike fining system. But ideally, we just want to educate.
What do you mean by 3-strike? You mean you deter users?
Warning, fine, ban.
Right.
If you three offences.
If you've left the bike in bad places.
Yeah, exactly. Because some users, unfortunately, it's a very small percentage. Of a fraction of our rides do end in complaints, but the ones that do, that often it can be, quite a bad offense. Sometimes a bike might be left across a pavement, and it's just like one bad egg doing that. They know that they're not doing the right thing, and so we obviously do, either warn, ban, and then warn, fine, and then ban. So we really want to make sure that those very few people don't ultimately ruin it and compromise the entire schemes. And when most, 99% of the time, people are doing the right thing. And putting those bikes in the right places. I think what will happen with this TfL tender, when it eventually comes, that will also remove any kind of misinformation where people don't know where to park, because then we've got the standardized approach. There can be no hiding behind the fact that, I didn't realize because I'm in.
But presumably the app tells you where to park to some extent, doesn't it? I mean, it tells you.
It does. Yeah, it absolutely does. But I think some people, if they're in a hurry, they think, that's fine, I'll just leave it there. And it's often, people in a hurry.
I mean, one of the problems certainly with Lime bikes, but I haven't seen it with yours actually, is that kids just take them and start cycling them around. But I think technically, is that possible with yours? I mean, maybe
it's been unfortunate for them, but that's not something that we've had, not an issue that we've had with our bikes.
So somehow technically, it's not possible to do that.
No, not with our bikes. We are lucky enough that hasn't been a problem, and obviously a lot of work went into that with our supplier to ensure that they were safe and to be hacked.
So something that I'm curious about is how you managed to get these bikes charged, because people leave them wherever, and then you want them to be used the next day. I mean, how do you make sure they're all charged and all kind of functioning?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, I mean, we have a in-house software called Forest Fleet, and that is what we use to manage the entire operation. So Forest Fleet is a one-stop shop for everything you need to know about any bike, any worker, any job that needs doing. And it also obviously tracks the battery health. So what we do is they're swappable batteries. And so when the bike gets to a certain percentage, that bike will be taken offline until the battery is swapped. And the technology is very smart in that it will create job sheets for our workers, for our forest guardians, to enable them to change a whole load of batteries in one go. And that's also the beauty of the parking bay model, is that they can come to a parking bay and they will be able to change a number of batteries in one go.
Right. And so you say you're operating in 14 boroughs. Are you planning to operate in the others? I mean, presumably most of those are central London. So there's another 18 boroughs to go. So are you planning to be London-wide?
Yes. Yeah. We would love to be. And we're working on entering into formal agreements with a number of new boroughs. But the idea ultimately would be to be, completely across London, to really boost that connectivity, particularly in areas of London which perhaps aren't as well served by the traditional, transport infrastructure.
Now, you said in the beginning that you think you've changed the way people travel in London. Have you got any evidence that you actually are creating new cyclists and new users of sustainable transport, and that maybe they might have gone in their cars before or whatever?
Yeah, we have a lot of research around that that shows, and I think So what we really say is that, or from what our users say, is that there's a combination. A lot haven't ridden a bike for a really long time, and they jump on a forest bike, and it kind of reinitiates them with cycling, something that they may have done since their childhood. And then for other users, they have their own bike, but they, on this occasion, don't want to take their own bike because perhaps they're going out after work, they're not doing the return trip, or they're worried about tying, locking it up at a certain location. They're worried about its safety, and so that they take a forest bike, because it's all care and no responsibility when you use the shared model. But it's I'm going to say 50% because that's a bit more conservative, but I do think it's higher of our users have said that thanks to Forest, they have taken up cycling again, or started cycling, and haven't done it before. We also invest in training programs with the boroughs. We partner with the local boroughs to fund training programs to get people comfortable with riding an e-bike.
Right. And so how do you see the future? I mean, are you profitable, or are you able to say whether you're profitable?
Yeah, no, we're profitable. And I think a big part of that as well has come down to the ad model. So when you open the app, you'll see that there's 5 impressions within the app. And that has been really quite fundamental, not just on the, for the user's perspective, but in terms of the users actually quite like the ads because there's often benefits and incentives within those ads. But that has helped us to get to profitability. And we've actually created a new company which we spun out of Forest, which is called AdMoai, and that's allowing other mobility apps access to the ad network and the technology that puts ads into their app. And so we're really like sharing the love in that sense, and allowing other mobility companies to diversify their revenue stream and monetize the spare sort of physical display space in their app to serve ads to their users.
So some of your revenue is from the ads.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Some of the revenues from the ads. So we get from the B2C and then also the B2B side. And that diversification has been really helpful in achieving profitability. And that's why we created this new company, AdMoai, allowing other mobility apps to do the same thing.
Right. And how many bikes are you able to say? How many bikes you have across London?
Just around 15,000 bikes.
15,000? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And are you expanding?
At this point, we hope to win some more boroughs so that we can add more bikes to London.
But you're not, 15,000 is what you'll keep for this amount of boroughs, and then you'll have more bikes if you
win more bikes. Yeah.
Okay, so how do you see the future? Are you do you think you'll achieve this kind of aim of being across London quite soon, or?
Yeah, we really hope to, and I think there's a strong tailwind in terms of borough adoption of dockless hire schemes. So we're really confident that we can continue to partner with boroughs, work with TfL, and in the industry body Como UK to really push forward the cycling agenda and get more and more people cycling and hopefully out of their cars.
And you don't want a monopoly. You're happy to have competitors.
No, I mean, competition is a good thing. It raises standards, and also, we offer something that Lime doesn't. And Lime, we've all got our own things, but affordability and sustainability are really the reasons why users choose Forest.
Okay, well, Caroline, thank you. That was a great interview, and I'm sure our listeners will be interested, and they might well hop on a human forest. And how would they do that? So
download the app. It's called the Forest app. Create an account, and away you go.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Caroline, for talking to Calling All Stations. Right.
Thanks so much for your time.
Here's Christian's final thought from the Departure Lounge.
I'm sitting at a bench on a 500-meter walkway that leads to Stuttgart Station. The noise you can hear behind me is people taking their suitcases along this very wide walkway, probably about 30 meters wide. And it's obviously a building site with a very low roof, lots of dust, lots of advertisements on the side, but full of graffiti. And it's part of an enormous project to rebuild Stuttgart Station, which really has some resonance of a mega project gone bad in the same way that HS2 has. It's now been in construction for about 15 years and was supposed to be completed in something like 2019, but there is little sign that it will be actually finished by 2030. The idea was to transform the existing station, which has 16 platforms but is a terminus station, into a through station to greatly increase capacity and make it easier for passengers to reach all kinds of destinations. But there's been endless rows about the design of the station. At one point, Deutsche Bahn actually stopped construction because it was worried that it wasn't going to deliver what it had hoped for. And there's been protest. Indeed, there was one protest right at the beginning that led to a lot of injuries and a very big police action. And there is a kind of atmosphere here of really kind of people putting up with this ghastly station, but not at all being happy about it. And their mood is not improved by the fact that there's cheery notices saying, well, virtual trains can be seen going through the station thanks to augmented reality. And I don't think it's a reality that the people walking past me are very happy with. You can barely get access to a taxi without going for a long walk. The underground station is right at the end of this passageway, about 500 meters away. And the station itself is therefore virtually inaccessible apart from going along either this walkway or another one. And really there's a feeling, talking to people earlier about this project, that this is never going to get finished, that obviously they don't know about HS2 and stuff, but a lot of what they say kind of chimes with what people say about HS2 and about the way that some projects just never seem to get done properly and end up costing. This one has gone from 4 billion euros to 11 billion, but it's going to cost a lot more than that. And never seem to kind of actually anybody getting a grip over it. And there's, looking at the kind of very long Wikipedia entry about this, there's a lot of kind of similar ideas that, nobody has been responsible for this project. Nobody has kind of really said, right, what are we doing here and why are we doing it? So outside, and I've taken some photographs, there's a vast kind of array of cranes, of half-built buildings, of stacks of building material, but a lot of it gathering dust. And indeed, the dust is so bad that I'm just about to get a water sprayer coming through here, very high pressure water spray, because of the day's dust. But you can be sure that the same will be repeated tomorrow and the next day. In fact, the nearest resemblance that I can think of to this is Euston, which has really a similar kind of building site feel to it, and a similar feeling that, is this ever going to get completed?
Calling All Stations, the Transport podcast with Christian Walmart, is produced by Cogitamus Limited, a leading provider of public affairs consultancy services in the sector. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have, please consider giving us a 5-star rating with whichever platform you use. Do follow us on social media channels, including Blue Sky, Facebook, and X, formerly known as Twitter. Our handle on X is @AllStationsPod.